Hey, how you doing? It's Mr. Producer. GIE Plus Expo is coming back October the 20th through the 22nd, and Brian looks forward to seeing you all there. Now, if you haven't registered yet, do so now and get 50% off the registration price with the promo code BRIAN. And of course, I'll have a link for you in the show description.
You're now listening to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. Straightforward, no nonsense business advice. Completely unfiltered. Grow your business. Grow your life. Now, here's your host, Brian Fullerton.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. It's your host, Brian Fullerton here, hanging out with you guys. And today we have an exciting guest interview, one of the OGs, I feel, in the green industry. We have none other than Paul Camara over here from Rhode Island joining us today on the show. Paul, how you doing this afternoon, brother?
We're doing excellent, Brian. Thanks for having me on.
Amen. Amen. Well, you and I were just getting to know each other a little bit before we hit record, and this is going to be a fun episode. I can already tell. So if you guys aren't following Paul on Instagram and social media, you might be living under a rock. This guy is I call him one of the OGs in lawn care landscaping. His work is immaculate. His Instagram and his photos and the way he brands his business is just incredible. It's beautiful how he puts his account together. So I want to know a little bit more of the Paul Camara startup story and your whole background in the green industry. So we'll just jump right into it. Paul, can you get these guys up to speed with maybe a quick minute or two snapshot of who you are, your background, and then where you guys are working out of?
Yeah, sure. We're working out of Rhode Island, Southern Rhode Island mainly. I started in the business through family. My grandfather started the business in I want to say probably the mid-'60s. My father was brought over from Portugal, and he knew my mom, and they got married in Portugal, and they came here. My mom is my grandfather's daughter, not my father's son. So I think I explained that kind of confusingly, but I'm sorry about that. I should have started in the right order. But yeah, my father came here to America when he was 19.
Okay.
And worked for my grandfather.
Gotcha.
Mid-'70s, my father started his own business. And 2000, I left my father's business and started my own, which is Spring Green Landscaping, which coincidentally was the name of my grandfather's business. So since then, I've been on my own.
Nice. And I was asking you earlier before we hit record, and you had a good chuckle. I said, how long have you been in the green industry? And your answer was...
I've never been out of the green industry. It's been the only thing I've ever done. As a kid, we were obligated to go to work. It wasn't a choice. We had to go. We had to pick weeds. We had to edge it was nice now with weed whackers, but we used to do it with cheap shears, edging the lawns and everything, planting flowers. I actually, as a little kid, had a small plastic, toy mower that would be in the trailer, and I'd follow my father around with the lawnmower, and we had our own set of tools. And I'm talking little. I'm not talking 12. I'm talking 6, 7.
Right.
It was. My dad was my daycare. The business was my daycare. My grandfather was my daycare. It's what we did if we weren't at school. So it's been a fun ride, and I wouldn't change it for anything. I love what I do, and just kept on going on with it.
Amen. Amen. Well, I can't wait to hear a little bit more about, your background and, your story as a youth getting into the industry. I mean, like you said, you've been doing this for 4 or 5 decades now, which is incredible. And I'll tell you guys straight up, we get a lot of people on the show, but something that really differentiates a lot of folks is the quality of the work that they do. Their knowledge of the industry. I think Paul, like you have just so much credibility out there, and you really shine a light out there for the industry for guys like me and a lot of the younger crowd. So I highly respect who you are and what you're doing, and so it's an honor to have you on the show as well. So let's do this. As you guys know, Paul, you were giving me some gruff already. You said you got to take that sip of water, and I think you did it with that Rhode Island accent, amen. So
We'll get that sip of water, Brian.
Well, we got Paul doing the transitions for us, so it makes my job that much easier. But let's do that. Today's show is not sponsored by Jersey Mike's, but that's what I'm drinking, the good old-fashioned Mountain Dew. That's how I do it over here, Paul. So let's do this. Let's kick it over to Marty, Mr. Producer. We're going to hear from today's show sponsors and updates, and then we're going to come right on back and hear a little bit more of Paul Camara and his story being in the green industry for almost 4.5 decades. How about that? We'll be right on back.
Thanks for hitting the play button on the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. Marty here, and I've skimmed ahead in the show. You will not be disappointed. I want to give a shout out to TJ with Cheslick Lawn Care. He recently was kind enough to send me a few gift cards as a way of saying thanks for making sure all the podcasts show up on time. TJ, you made my day. And with the money that you guys can save using the Brian's 10 promo code, think of someone you could bless with a note of appreciation and a gift card. That code works at Equipment Defender, Cujo Yardware, Proven Locks, Darwin's Grip, Ballard-Inc.com. We've got the entire list available in the show description. And Brian's 10 also saves you $10 with today's show sponsor.
Stay protected and connected as you grow your lawn care business. Ditch your uncomfortable earplugs or muffs and step up your game with IsoTunes. Hearing protection you'll want to wear. IsoTunes provides protection you need and freedom you deserve. Merging high-quality audio with unsurpassed durability, IsoTunes delivers OSHA-compliant protection to last you season after season. Gear up with the next generation of hearing protection. Visit isotunes.com today.
Lawns, lessons, and live. This is the Fullerton Unfiltered Podcast. Now, your host, Brian Fullerton.
All right, and we're back. So, hey, Paul, let's just go right back into your story. Where would you like to take it away with your startup story? Because would you say
a long story?
I was saying we got 25 minutes, right? So where?
Yeah, quick.
Do you want to go back to when you were a teen and branching out from your father's business, or do you want to talk a little bit about how you were kind of brought up in the industry, working for your father? How'd that work?
We can do it. We kind of can mix it all up. I was brought into it full time when I was 18, and before 18, I was doing a lot more of the stonework. My father was a stonemason. My brother still is a stonemason, and my grandfather. So we were mainly a masonry company that did landscaping kind of just to keep the bills paid.
Okay.
So through most of my early life in the business was basically on the masonry, stone masonry, and we were doing a lot of chimneys and fireplaces and brick facing of houses and things like that. So I spent a lot of time with my dad at that time. When I graduated, I was obligated to take on the landscape maintenance part of the business.
Gotcha.
And I didn't like it. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. I saw it as kind of a, maybe below me, I guess, or below anybody to do the lawn maintenance part of it. But my father said you had to do it. And after starting and trying and making a ton of mistakes and seeing just how hard it really was to be anything good at it, I started to enjoy it. And there was always some guys around in the properties that we were doing that were really doing excellent work, and I just aspired to do the work like they were doing, like this high-end, beautiful style of landscape maintenance.
Amen.
And
Amen.
I just really, really, really aspired to do that, and I befriended a lot of them. I mean, like I said, my father's landscape maintenance wasn't the primary factor of the business.
Sure.
We were doing what we had to do to get it done, but these guys, I befriended some landscape architects and designers and stuff like that through the years, and the work they were doing was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
And
do you guys currently offer any lawn maintenance with the current business, or are you guys just more like landscape and hardscape design, or where's your guys' focus right now?
So actually, I don't do any hardscaping or the traditional masonry style work anymore for clients. I actually love doing it, and do some around my property, or for a special if someone really wants something done, like a fire pit, something small, I'll take it on, but I don't do that anymore.
Okay.
So we basically, I have less than 20 clients.
Okay.
And we do whatever that client wants. So we will bring on lawn care fertilization companies to take on, that kind of work. I don't do that. But as for the landscape design work, planting work, any kind of enhancement work, anything top to the bottom of the landscape, I usually take care of. And if anything needs to be done on the masonry end, my brother comes in because he still has his stone masonry business. So we have a really good network of contractors from irrigation, masonry, everything all under one umbrella, and we can really get as much work done as we can, as anybody really could. So it works out well.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. I know the area a little bit. I actually went over there. We have some friends, I think, over in Warwick. We were catching up before we hit record. And so I got to, go on tour. Our friends had a wedding, so we stretched the whole trip out to like a 4 or 5 day trip. It was actually like 4 or 5 years ago, which was the first GIE that I knew of, because I didn't even know GIE existed until about 5 years ago. And that weekend was the same weekend that was the GIE week. So I opted out to go to one of my best friend's weddings over there in Rhode Island. So we saw, I don't know all the cities, but we saw, most of Rhode Island. I mean, the whole state's only, an hour wide.
Right.
So we saw Boston. We went to Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, the Newport Mansions. I mean, that area is, it seems to be very upper class, very wealthy, in a lot of these homes and areas. So is that what you guys sort of specialize in, or do you have some of these clients that are a little bit more affluent, or what's your bread and butter for the clients you do service if it's only 20 or 30 a year like you're talking about?
Right. Most of them are on the more affluent sides of the spectrum. But Rhode Island is not at all an affluent state. I mean, there are pockets,
okay,
such as in the coastal areas and Newport, and like you said, even going into Massachusetts with Boston and Cape Cod, there are some affluent areas. Watch Hill is another one here in Rhode Island. But yeah, look, we do we try to stay with who really wants their properties done well, and that doesn't necessarily mean all of our clients are affluent, are rich or well off.
Mm-hmm.
There are few that we still do that are adults. I would say probably in their 70s and 80s, but they love their property and they will use their money for their property instead of using it on other things. So
right.
If they love their property, they want their property done well, and somebody refers them to us, we will go out and talk with them.
Amen to that. Let me ask you this. This is probably a soft pitch right down the middle, so you can hit this one out of the park. But when it talks about the evolution of the industry over the last 30, 40 years, I mean, my gosh, you've probably seen all of it. So like you said, you guys were using wheelbarrows and shovels, and now the equipment has changed, the labor market has changed. What do you think is the craziest thing, or the most surprising thing that you guys are doing today that you weren't doing 30 years ago, or vice versa? Anything from equipment to installation techniques, and I mean, you've seen the whole industry change over the last 30 plus years.
Well, yeah, we've equipment is big. I utilize as much equipment as I possibly can. We only have 3 employees. So it's me and 3 other guys. So whatever we do, we have to be very, very thoughtful on the equipment we use. Mm-hmm. We're back in the older days, we had a backhoe, a full-size construction backhoe. We had full-size, large dump trucks and things that right now I wouldn't even want to go near that kind of equipment to do anything. Mm. It's evolved. I mean, I still use rubber-tired skid steers, but the track skid steers and, mini excavation equipment and things like it's just so much better to do the work. The equipment just changed everything. Mm. As far as lawn care and lawn maintenance, the equipment has changed as well too. I mean, when my father was doing it in the 80s and late 70s, it was all 21-inch mowers. You put eight of them in a trailer, and you had 5 guys in the truck sitting on each other's laps, and they would just go and mow all day long. Seriously, I remember. Got the back of the trucks. And it was just a different time. So in 1990, we ended up buying our first 48-inch walk behind. Mm. John Deere, and it wasn't the best. We could have did a little better, but we didn't. You know, it was new to us. And back then there was another brand called Bunton, and John Deere made a similar machine, so we ended up with the John Deere. Then we ended up with Lesco walk behinds, and those were great for what they were. That just changed everything. The only problem that didn't change, Brian, that I've seen through the years is the same lawns that we were doing 20 years ago for $35. People are doing them today for $35.
Wow.
That surprises me the most. Like the small residential properties, the prices never changed. We were doing them with push mowers and I mean, barely. I mean, if anything, they've gone up $5. And I'm talking about, when I started my business 2000, so we're knocking on, we're over 20 years, really. Those jobs are still being priced at the same price. So
yeah, that's crazy.
I attribute it to the equipment, really. People bought bigger equipment. They were getting the work done faster and more efficient, and they never raised their prices. Where instead of spending $3,000 or $4,000 on a walk behind and say, no, we have to raise our price to absorb the cost of the machine. They didn't absorb the cost. They just wanted to keep their customers. And it was a snowball effect. Around here, I really don't know if it is nationwide, but I know around here that was something that happened.
No, I mean, I'll tell you honestly, a lot of guys listening in, listen to the show regularly. I know you listen to a lot of our show.
Sure.
We had a guy on here named Troy Clogg. He's 5 minutes down the road from me. He's like an OG. I did a video or two with him and a podcast. And
I listen to him.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, Troy's a pretty well-known name in the industry, and he said the same thing you did, which was, he was cutting lawns in the early 90s, right, for, $35. And today, that same lawn is still $35. And, he said everything is triple the cost from trucks to mowers. But
it's not more, Brian. Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, nowadays a modern zero turn or stander is 10 to 15 grand. And actually I'm a big mow and blow guy, right? So I'm constantly having those conversations with customers when we quote them $40 and they go, well, I had the neighborhood kid for 20, or the other guy quoted me 25. And I'm like, look, it should be 50 or $60 a week for my little 4,000 or 5,000 square foot lawn. Right. So we're always fighting that. And I'm always doing my best to, try to elevate the industry. Like people always ask, what's the point of the YouTube channel and Launchpreneur Academy and the podcast? And I'm like, hey man, rising tide raises all ships. I'm just trying to help everybody understand to raise their rates and make more money and be more efficient and profitable. So that's like one of my wishes is for, the contractors, we're all starting to get it, which is cool. But I mean, still the customers out there, whether you're doing lawn care or landscaping, you quote somebody a patio and you tell them $10,000 and they go, oh, I thought it'd be $4,000, do you guys still run into any of that with the landscaping and the enhancements that you guys do? Or do you think that's just mostly still a stigma in the lawn care part?
I think a good customer can smell fear, Brian. I think that's the biggest thing. And a lot of guys, they don't have the confidence when they come into their pricing and their abilities to price their jobs. So a customer will always going to try. But as for me, we really don't take on many new clients. And when we are brought on to a client, this may sound arrogant. If they want us, then they're going to have to pay for what we have to do. So, I don't like to compare what we do to what many of the listeners are doing. It's a little different. But like you said a little while ago, the reason I'm even on Instagram was when we started putting a few photos up for a few friends. I started getting followers and younger guys saying, you're inspiring me to do better work.
Amen.
And that was unbelievable to me. And I said, this is why I'm here. This is the reason. And, to hear that, even if they are making more money, I get that. There's a lot of guys out there teaching more money, but do more work, do better work. That was big for me.
No, I will echo that. I mean, that's one of the reasons I would encourage you all that are listening in to follow Paul on Instagram. It's Paul_Camara, CAMARA_. Give him a follow because, I mean, first off, just the quality of his photos, the quality of the work, of course, is reflective in those photos. It literally inspires me to do a good job. I mean, it inspires me to be better. I'm like, hey, like if I'm thinking, this is how I kind of work, and I'm just a little crazy, but I'm like, if I do a job and, my followers happen to see our property, or I'm like, what would Paul, think if he drove by my site, or my friend Mike Bedell, I'm always like, man, like I got to be accountable to like keeping a good, standing, and doing a good job. And it's kind of like that little, it's like that old saying, like when a brave man takes a stand, the spines of others stiffen, It's exactly. It's like the same thing. And I feel like you're that guy that makes sure that the younger guys do a good job out there, I mean,
well, that's a lot of those, I'm not big on the lingo on a lot of things, but the private messaging when people call in and ask me questions, it's all about, what are these plants? What's this plant's name? And I want to know this. And and that to me, I enjoy that. I don't like getting the call saying, how much would you charge for this job? Because that's personal to you. You really have to know that yourself. But
sure,
to be able to help them horticulturally, or at least point them in the right direction. And I sat as president in our state association in 2019, and the Landscape Association, and that was the most fun to do. That was to bring on younger guys into it and for them to teach, and the teaching part has always been a big thing to me. I enjoy that. It's
Let me ask you this: when you said a customer can smell fear, like from the new guys, like what's some encouraging words you can give to those guys that are in their first 6 months, maybe 2 to 3 years in business, relating to that topic? Is it knowing their value, knowing their worth? What do you mean the customers can smell fear on them if they're trying to bid a job?
Well, what I get to on that is, and I've been through it. I remember my dad going through this. It's just. Everybody goes through it. So when you're going into a job and you're going to be doing a spring cleanup, and the spring cleanup's going to be $800 or $900, and you're pricing that job out, how many hours it's going to take you, and you set that price up for $900. What's the first thing your mind does? It starts talking you out of that $900, right? You say, go for it. Then you start thinking to your customer, and you say, all right, I'm going to go to $800. I want to get this job. I got to lower it. So you go to the $800. Then you walk up and you say, yeah, you got a lot to do here. It's going to take me this much time, and this, it's going to be about $800. And the customer feels that fear in you, and they go for it. And you say, well, all right, if you want, I'll give you $650. And what do? Okay, no problem. I want that job. And that $650 becomes your normal price, not the $900 anymore, because then you think this must be normal, right? I mean, a lot of guys fall into that trap, and I just wish people that, as they see that they got that $650 and then they saw how much money they lost, they start to gain confidence in their pricing. And when someone says, I'll give it to you for $650, you say, no, my price is my price. This is how much it is. But it all comes down to confidence, because most customers will smell that fear. And not only that, another thing that contractors do is they pad their price wrong. They'll say that the job is, they want $800 and they'll give it for $900. They'll give a price, say $900, expecting to get their price brought down to $800. I don't agree with that either. Just name your price and stick with it.
Amen.
And
Amen.
Confident about it. And, as for pricing things, that's where I stand.
I like it.
I'm in a position, after all these years into it, I really don't care. I mean, so sounds arrogant. I don't care if a customer accepts or not. I have plenty of work. And that comes with confidence as well. And that's what I hope that many people can gain that and be able to make as much money in this business as they can, because why else do it? I mean, if you just do it in your own house, if you enjoy doing gardening and landscaping, that's fine. But you really make money on this.
So be hungry, but don't be desperate is kind of what I'm getting.
I I don't like desperation because it always ends up with you out of business. It always. I have seen so many friends, colleagues just burn themselves out of this business so fast because they're not making enough money, because they don't know how to price their work. They don't know their own worth, how much they should be charging. And then they see someone like me on Instagram with all these beautiful photos and pictures, and they do this work that I'm doing for half the price I'm doing, and then the customer is the only one that's getting all the advantages of it because they're not making enough money.
Right.
It's a double sword because people want to do this beautiful work like I did, because I'm talking from experience. I saw like I was saying earlier, I saw the people in the neighborhood doing beautiful work, and I would do it, and my father would tell me, "Why are you taking so long on these jobs?" And I would tell him, and he'd say, "No, that's not what we're priced for. You can't do that. You can't, prune or do rose pruning while you're cutting the grass. You got to get out of there." And it just wasn't priced correctly for that kind of work. So I've been there. I've seen the mistakes that people can make.
Wow, that's good. That's so good. I mean, if that's one thing that we try to encourage people. I mean, that was my life story for 11 years until I stumbled upon YouTube, started making some content, had a lot of people, weigh in, "Hey, raise your rates," or "What are you doing this for $20 or $25 or whatever." Right. I mean, I basically everything wrong, right? One of those deals. I always joke.
We all have. Yeah, we have.
And frankly, I was probably 2 minutes away from being a statistic, and that was after 10 years. I always say, like, you can be in business for 10 years, but so what? It's not like you've had a successful 10 years or a profitable 10 years. Like I joked on a podcast, I don't know, a couple months back. I said, it wasn't like we were having the bank account swell year over year. It was like we had great cash flow, but there wasn't 30, 40, 60, 200,000 laying around. It's we're having a pretty good year this year and last year, and things are swelling, and we're always working on our prices. I don't think you're ever done working on that and dialing it in. I mean, it's constant.
No, because if you're thinking you're paying your guys and you're making good money, a year like this can really throw that in the toilet. I mean, the labor rates right now just skyrocketed. Everything just went up. Everything next year has to change. So it changes constantly. It changes constantly. But we're in an industry that they call it the low. You don't really need to do much to get into it. But the problem is a lot of guys, they really fall in love with those shiny lawnmowers and beautiful trucks and those awesome trailers, and they will sacrifice their own food for that equipment. And I wish that people could look past that and get as a business and see it as a trade. I mean, just the horticultural part of it alone, the plants and knowing how to keep that stuff alive and looking beautiful and keeping a property looking beautiful. That's money in the bank, because there's not a lot of them out there. People ask all the time, what can I do to set myself apart? And it's learn the plants, because that's easy. I mean, that's the easiest answer, because having a shiny truck or uniform guys, anybody can do that if they have a little extra money, but they can't get the knowledge. The knowledge can get you so much farther in the abilities.
That's solid. So invest in. We always say on the podcast, invest in your future, invest in yourself. It's not a tagline. I always tell people, like, what can I do to differentiate myself? I'm like, educate the customer, add value to the customer and the client. And people will pay for that. I mean, people pay good money for you're a consultant, and that's the cool thing. Like you learn a skill set, and then it's a skill set you arguably know or have for life. I mean, you go to a 2-hour seminar, and now you know this stuff forever. Right.
And in my case, a lot of the properties I handle, I have to be somewhat of a general contractor. You're building a house, so you got to hire the one guy, and then he brings in all his guys to do all the work, right? You hire the contractor, he's going to bring in the sheetrock guy, the framers, all that stuff. Yeah. And a lot of I would say not a lot, but a percentage of the properties I do, I'm set up as that contractor, where they call me and they say, there's a irrigation, there's a sprinkler going into the fire pit area. Instead of them calling the irrigation contractor, they call me. I get the irrigation contractor there and get the work done. So there's a premium when it comes to that kind of service, but you can do it. It's an untapped market, I believe, in the landscape industry, where you can be a general contractor or a caretaker is a different way of doing it as well, where you're handling everything outdoors, plowing. I don't plow, but I'll hire the guy that plows. You know what I mean?
Sure. I like what you said there. As people always say, what's a leader, right? A leader is somebody who solves problems. I mean, like
right.
point blank. What do we all do with our businesses? Whether it's a product or a service, we're enriching somebody's life. We're solving problems. I mean, that at its root, that's what we're all doing every day. We're installing enhancements and solutions and lawn maintenance. We're solving problems. And I love what you said about quarterbacking as that go-to person, because if you're going to hire somebody at a lower rate that has some, there's some opportunity where they might not get the job done correctly versus paying a premium for somebody who is going to get the job done correctly. Me personally, like, time is money, and I, as a business owner and a consumer, I want it done right the first time. And so like you said, I think if you hire that person that is educated, is confident, and can solve more problems for me, I'm going to go with that guy every time. So we always try to, educate on this podcast and a bunch of the other podcasts in the industry, like, solve these people's problems. It's not how well you can mow stripes or necessarily your planting techniques. That's part of it, but we want to solve the greater problem of that customer, which is whatever. They want the landscaping looking nice, the lawn taken care of, and sometimes we nerd out about the wrong things. And it's just this negative feedback loop. And then, like you said, 2, 5, 10 years later, you can spin yourself right out of the business by not being profitable,
But, on a separate side of that, a lot of times, business owners get or smaller. I mean, let's face it. Most lawn care owners are disgruntled employees of another lawn care company. So they can always do it better. My boss couldn't do it this way. I can do it better. But they always skip the knowledge. They always skip the ability of, problem solving in the landscape. This is the landscape industry. And I know we're problem solvers, but we also have to know, well, I guess I'm saying that wrong. We are problem solvers, but we have to know what we're talking about. That's another thing that a customer can sniff you out so quickly. I felt it early on in my life where they would ask me, you name it, what's the name of this plant? And I would try to fake it and try to say something that wasn't the right name just so I could answer the question. And they knew the damn answer. And
we get that a lot here too.
What's more embarrassing than that? So that taught me, no, I got to know as many of the answers as possible. We never know everything, but the horticultural part of this industry is so important, especially if we're small. And what is it? 90% of the lawn care companies are all owner operators. They're not, big Troy clogs or whatever. You know what I'm saying? They're not that guy. Troy can have a group of guys horticulturally specific out in the field with their, he doesn't have to, which I'm sure he does. I'm not saying that, but in our aspect where we're owner operators, man, you got to know as much as you possibly can and spend those winters just brushing up and going to the nursery and learning the plants and learning where they belong and looking at diseases. I mean, my friend Chad with Greeneries, he almost every day or every few days he puts a video on how to spot different problems in the landscape. I mean, it's like that is so needed, just so people can see. He was talking about birch borers in his last video, and I'm like, wow, I wish I had that when I was 20 years old.
Amen.
The information's out there. It's just, you got to be able to be hungry for it.
Yeah. Well,
all the money.
And that's the thing too. Like, don't just continue to get educated on the business, right? Get educated in the bit. And that's something that I'm like actually really excited about, because I as a mow and blow guy, I know a little bit about fertilizer and turf management and all that fun stuff. I mean, that was my stint at True Green. And, being there for 18 months, I absorbed quite a bit. I forgot more than I learned, right? One of those deals.
Sure.
But I went to the the Techo Block showcase to just start learning some stuff.
All those were fun. Those were fun back in the day.
Yeah. Yep. Our local group is the MGIA, the Michigan Green Industry Association. I want to sign up for the whole membership, starting this year and start going through these. I'm 15, 16 years in. It's we've got a very stable lawn maintenance business. It does a couple $100,000. I'm very content and happy, but I don't want my brain to be content and settle, So I'm not that I'm going to be the guru in how to prune or certain topics, but it just makes me a more valuable business owner and company to my clients to whether I'm offering the solution or not, at least I can help them navigate who to go to, where to go next, what to ask for. And to me, that's just fun. That's just help. It's just being a helpful, more valuable person out there.
And it can help you, even if you don't want to be out there with the pruner in your hands, it allows you to be able to teach your leader, your next crew guy, your next person that's going to be doing that. It's educating your own staff on how to do things correctly.
So good.
I always tell people, what you allow, you encourage. So if you're allowing people to do the work the wrong way because they don't know how to do it the right way, you're basically encouraging them to do it.
So good. So good. These are this is like a run of fire, conversation, outdoors, like the OG, teaching the young guys, this is, I always appreciate conversations like this and your perspective on things in the industry. And this is the kind of stuff you get when you get to sit down with folks who've been in the industry for 30, 40 years. And, it just feels awesome to have you be able to pour into our audience, myself. I know we don't take it for granted, Let's do this. We'll kind of land the plane here because I want to be respectful of your time here we're actually doing this on a Sunday afternoon. So I super appreciate Paul taking some time out of his weekend. I know you and I could literally talk for another 2 hours. So maybe we'll do a little, late fall, something like that, recap and, do a little round two. Cause frankly, we didn't talk about equipment. You've got these beautiful red, GMC trucks out there. Your leaf setup inspired my leaf setup this last fall.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, you guys, it's so fun. Like you guys listening in and myself included, we get to learn from guys who've been doing this for 30, 40, 50 years. And frankly, I'm not a big reinvent the wheel kind of guy. I'm like, hey, if it's working for this guy, I'm just going to copy it. And people are like, hey, you just copied so-and-so setup. And,
it works.
It works. I mean, I'm 900 miles away from this guy. It's not going to take any food off of his plate.
Right.
So we'll have to do a, maybe around leaf season, we can do a little bit, we can nerd out on equipment. Cause I know, having 30 plus years in the industry, I'm sure you guys have used a little bit of almost everything at this point, We've
tried it. We've tried a few.
I love it. Well, let me ask you this really quick. As we just kind of wrap this up, one thing I always like to do is just kind of open mic. If there's anything that's like your biggest jewel of knowledge that you can pass on, or something that you would tell the Paul Camara that's 20 years old, right? Now that you got this 30 years of wisdom, any big takeaways, whether it's from a business practice or a life goal or mantra that you adopt? Anything you want to leave the audience while we got you really quick?
If I could tell myself, when I first started, would be that know yourself. I didn't know I knew myself and just didn't know myself. I wanted to be big. I wanted to have a huge business. And, I wanted it, but I didn't truly want it because I loved working in the field. I didn't understand that. If I listen to myself a little bit more, are you there? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're still here.
Oh yeah. If someone else is calling on the phone, I lost you. No, that's something that, I have a young gentleman helping, and he comes to me and says, I love working in the field. I said, then do it. He goes, well, I got more work. I said, what do you love? You love working? Do the work. You don't have to do it forever, but do it while you can. Know yourself. Know your personality. Figure yourself out, because you can waste a lot of time
Trying to be somebody else.
Yeah, trying to be exactly. Hey, Brian, you took the words. If I could just find the right words, trying someone else. Exactly.
Well, I'll tell you that helped me be at peace about myself a little bit more these last 3-4 years with how I make my YouTube channel. I tried to be like everybody else, and then I just was like, I can't be everybody else. I'm not funny. I mean, I'm funny in groups. I'm not funny, like on the camera. I'm very like detailed and very analytical, and I like to deconstruct things. Right? I'm a teacher type. I'm a engineer type. But the same thing with my business. I don't have the patience for the intricacies sometimes of the landscaping and the pruning. But my friend Mike Bedell, he does. And so when I have questions, I ask him. And he can go down to like the mitochondria and the root system. I mean, like whatever, and I poke fun, but I mean it in all sincerity too, that he's like that guy. And that's his passion. Right. And so, I'd rather talk about a little bit more macro things. And he's like so smart on so many different things. And I'm like, you know what? Instead of trying to be him, I'll just, use him as one of my subcontractors and just pay him a premium and the top dollar because he's so worth it. And he solves not only my clients' problems, but he solves my problems. And so it's like, it's a beautiful thing out there. But I love the pearls of wisdom that you just dropped there. Like, know yourself, know what you're good at, know what you're not good at. And that's just good stuff. I mean, this is a gem of a podcast for myself. Hopefully you guys listening in got something out of it. If you guys have, do me a favor, take a screenshot of the Instagram or of the podcast, share it on Instagram, and maybe tag Paul, tag myself. We always love hearing the feedback too. So if you guys listen to this episode, you got anything out of it, and you guys want to follow on Instagram, shoot Paul a DM. Say, hey, thanks for jumping on the show with Brian. Super appreciate you. Whatever you guys want to say, but just let Paul know that we appreciate him out there. So, Paul, that's what I got for today, brother. We really appreciate you jumping on the podcast. And any last things? But if not, we'll button it up right here.
Hey, just congratulations on your on your family to be. I'm jealous of you, my friend. That's gonna be you're gonna have a good time.
Thank you. Well, we're super excited. Baby's coming any minute, and then the house right behind that, and it is.
You take it all on. You're taking it all on. I definitely like watching what you're doing. It's awesome.
Well, hey, your story is immortalized now, my friend. So hopefully you'll be able to change lives for years to come. Which I know before we hit record on the podcast, you jumped at the opportunity because you said you wanted to give back, and that's always a kindred spirit out there. So we appreciate you big time. But enough of me oogling and oozing over the fanboy syndrome, because I love so many of you guys out there that listen in. I respect so much of you guys that listen in. I'm not the top down. I'm one of you guys, and we're all in this together. So, Paul, thanks so much for taking the time today, brother. We really appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Brian. Thank you, and we'll be talking again soon.
Amen to that. All right, guys. Well, hey, if you guys enjoyed the show, like I said, don't forget to share it maybe on Instagram or on Facebook. And then if you guys haven't left those 5-star reviews, we really appreciate that. Let us know how we're doing. We always appreciate that feedback. So, guys, thanks again for listening to this episode of the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Step up your hearing protection game with the earmuffs you've been waiting for. Introducing IsoTunes Link. With up to 28 hours of battery life and a hands-free experience, Link is perfect if you prefer over-the-ear protection on the job. Sweat and water-resistant memory foam cushions deliver the level of comfort you want and the protection you need. Gear up with the next generation of hearing protection. Visit isotunes.com today.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to the Fullerton Unfiltered podcast with Brian Fullerton. We hope you enjoyed this production. If so, please consider leaving us a 5-star review for the show. While the techniques and ideas presented here are designed to help you grow a more successful and profitable business, no one can guarantee these results for you. We want to emphasize that entrepreneurship is not easy, and the ideas presented here are just the opinions of Brian Fullerton and his respective guests. No one can guarantee success for you. That being said, we hope the ideas presented here help you and motivate you to go on out there and crush it with your own business.
Fullerton Unfiltered Podcast.
Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode.
This has been a Brian Fullerton and Mr. Producer production.